Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome to the Property Couch podcast and welcome to you, Ben. How are you?
G'day, mate. How you going?
I'm pretty good. I've had a few people reach out to me this week, Ben, in anticipation of our opening chat today. I'm a little bit nervous.
Huge show, mate. Just a huge show. I reckon we should just get straight into it, Bryce. Let's jump straight into the show. We've got a double header. Amazing guests.
Yeah, we do have a double header. We had West Coast beat Collingwood and we have now Fremantle beat Collingwood. So thank you for setting that up beautifully
there
for me.
We go, rightio. So, yes.
Hey, I'm a little bit nervous about this, Ben, because, you know, like I'm so excited to see what your response is, that it's like a trial lawyer who's, you know, got their opponent on the ropes, and if they go too far with it, you know, they might turn the jury off, right? So I'm a little concerned. I've had a few people reach out to me saying, are you ready to rev up, Ben? And then a couple of other people reach out saying, "Oh no, this Bryce is going to."
I just think it's
good question. What happened?
It's good for football. I mean, it just puts Fremantle on the map, right, for 1 week. It's amazing.
Because we beat you. We put her on the map because we beat you. Hey, one of your very own, Ben. I want to quote, right? So from Facebook. So I'm friends with arguably the most influential person in Perth, you know, Damien Collins, the president of the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia. Yeah. So he and I are Facebook friends. So we'll put a little dialogue back and forth. But Ben, you can see a nice photo of him and his wife. They're at the footy. Yeah. You know, really polished looking as Damien and his wife always do. But here's the subtext: two Collingwood supporters with their own teeth, university degrees, and no tattoos. Unheard of. Mate, that's one of your own, eh?
We have our supporter base is rich, Bryce. And it goes. We are all over the country, and we go into all demographics. Is all I'll say. When we love our club,
mate, well done.
And side by side, we stick together.
I sent you a text. It was a purple heart at the end of the game. You were very gracious. So I think
you deserve the win. You
outworked
us. You deserve the win. You out-hustled us, out-pressured us. And you
got bragging rights, but it is unusual for you to want to move on very quickly, because normally you want to go into how the mids played, how the backs played, how the forwards played, who got the most possessions. It's a bit where we all sort of start to yawn a lot.
It's nice that you're trying to catch up to the win-loss ratio, Bryce. So we played you 32 times. We've won 19 and you've won 13. So you're not too bad.
Let's talk about the stat that counts, Ben. In the AFL era, we've only lost one grand final. How many have you lost in the AFL era?
How many have we won? Two?
It doesn't matter how many you lost, mate. That's what's important here. So there we go. All right, we've got that out of the way. You had a webinar during the week, Ben, with the one and only Veronica Morgan.
Yeah, so great webinar for Picker members. So it is on demand, Bryce. So it's available for everyone to get their hands on. If you're a member,
I was going to say everyone.
Yes, you got to. So you pay your $5 or $20 for 5 years. You go to picker.asn.au. You log in with your membership, and we not only have that, we have all of our webinar series and our educational series videos on demand in the media and the education section there. So, but Veronica was obviously first class. She's one of Australia's best in terms of her intelligence around buying property. So she gave some really important insights into, auctions and private treaty sales and dealing with agents and other buyers. So it really she's a jet. So it was a quality.
She's a jet. So here's what I'm hearing, Ben. You can get access to one of the greatest tacticians in the country when it comes to buyer's agency for $5.
Yep.
Wow, that's a pretty good deal.
Yep. So just jump on that. We love all the members. Anyone who's a budding investor or an active investor, please join us. We non-for-profit. Our job is to advocate and educate property investors so they make the right decisions, which is what we've been trying to do on this podcast since all way back in 2015, Bryce. when we first started. And I think that's the message. I mean, our message has been consistent in terms of there are markets within markets and there's opportunities there. So we want to educate, and so does Veronica and her obviously great team there at Good Deeds.
Deeds Property Buyers,
what they do.
Absolutely.
So it's good.
So if you want to go and listen to my television wife, Ben, $5 for those who aren't members, and free for those who are members. So if they go to the Picker website, Ben,
picker.asn.au, Bryce.
There we go. There you go, folks. Go and check it out. Hey, Ben, the Pipper.
Yes.
Not Picker, Pipper.
Yes.
Sentiment survey.
So we've been doing the sentiment survey since 2016, I think, Bryce. And so we're building up a body of knowledge around the marketplace. It happens just before the spring selling season every year. And so we're doing a call out. I know people are busy. I know things are happening, but if you've been consistent in doing that survey, please do it again, because we want to get a read in terms of your mindset, what's happening. It's a great sentiment piece. So the link will be in the show notes. We'll also make sure that we send it out to everyone who's in our community on our database. So please stand by for that and take effectively it's about 5 to 10 minutes to fill it in, because it's an in-depth dive in terms of what we're seeing in the marketplace or what you're seeing in the marketplace. So please do that. And we'll also be sending that out to Picker members as well. And hopefully they can jump on board as well. So that survey will be open for the next couple of weeks. So any way you can help us there in terms of getting a read on your intentions now and into the next 6 to 12 months, that would be great. Thank you, Bryce.
We'll share the insights here, so which will be good. So, hey, Ben, thank you for that. Last week's episode, we interviewed Nancy Guevara, which was talking about Indigenous culture around money, finance and wealth creation. So we've received some enormous amounts of feedback, overwhelmingly positive. So I know Nancy is listening to this. She tunes into the Property Couch, Ben, and we'll connect with her. But she is an angel because for two reasons. One, for the feedback that we've been getting for a number of people in her community who have just said brave, amazing leadership, given us some vision of where we want to be. And also for me, Ben, because if she hadn't reached out, I might have still remained ignorant for a particular segment of our community, some of the challenges that they face. And it really opened my eyes. And some of the feedback that we've received since, which hopefully we can share in the next couple of weeks, if we get permission for some of that, Ben, has just been nothing short of amazing. And I guess it goes back to the original intention of why you and I started the podcast, and part of the work that we do in our business is, if you could remind folks about that conversation you had with that person around what impact you could have on folks.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't shared this more broadly publicly, Bryce. So it's probably the first time I've mentioned this, but many years ago, when I was looking to move into this space, about sort of 2004, I was at a dinner party and we were talking about why I was starting a mortgage broking business and looking at wealth creation and property as that vehicle. And it was a New Year's Eve party, so obviously everyone was sitting around the table as we were having a chat, and there was a particular antagonist person at that particular dinner party. So I made the bold statement that, the business that I wanted to build was a purpose-led business. It was about the view that I had, and I still share to this day, and very passionate about it, Bryce, is that every household has the potential to improve their financial story and achieve financial peace, right? And when I made that statement, that statement around what the business was about, I got a very off the cuff, smart ass comment, which was, "Oh, does that include everyone, including the Aboriginal people?" And I just thought, I said something in my mind at that time. I didn't share it at the table, but it just sort of said to me, if you could think about what I was saying in my mind, swearing to myself to prove a point. And that's pretty much been a real driver for me in terms of, when people say you can't do something, and when I do believe that every household can reorganize their story and reorganize their finances and trap that money and basically put that money to work, it's been a really big motivator for me to do the work that I do. And obviously now we're privileged to be working together. It's how I met you on this journey and the great people that we work with. And I'm steadfast in that belief, Bryce. Every Australian, I mean every Australian, I don't care what your backstory is, what minority group you're in, anything like that. I have this undeniable belief that through some coaching, some new habit formations, some mindset shifts, that you will be in a position where you can achieve it. And whether you're in a minority group, you're our First Nations people, I don't care what mob you come from, it's up to you to take accountability for your own story. And so I teared up when I read one of the particular bits of feedback from one person in feedback from last week's podcast. It was quite powerful for me.
Very powerful.
And it sort of made me respond to everyone in our team to sort of say, yes, we can make a difference. We can, and we're making a small difference. Make no mistake. We come in here every week. It's a delight to be able to do this. It's a delight to share our story with the community. And I'm very passionate about that idea. And that's why we've got the platform, the money management platform, where everyone can organise their money, and then it's about executing on that story. So thank you for allowing me to share that. But I've never shared that, that particular story because it was quite personal to me. But I just thought, no, you're wrong, and I'll prove you wrong. And we've been doing that for the last sort of 15 years.
Well, last week was a fulfilment of that vision that you had at the time, which was great. But one podcast doesn't make a difference. So clearly, there's still a lot of work to do. But just if we were able to, at the very least, share to our community, I think the podcast has been brilliant from my own perspective, Ben, because I do come from white middle class Australia with parents that have been married for 50 years, and my sister is, one of my very best friends. So I'm certainly very lucky and privileged to be in that position. But through this podcast, I've been able to better understand some of the challenges that are faced, some marginalised and minority groups. So the fact that we are, you and I are both very open to helping people who are marginalised or in a minority,
disadvantaged, right? It's a challenge for some of these people. It's real. Their culture is real. They are sometimes ostracized. They are judged because they're different. They're not conforming to, the way in which that family unit has run for many, many years. And they're trying to break that mold and reset their agenda for themselves and be a role model for their people. And I think that is incredibly powerful.
It's amazing.
That they're aspirational and that they take the hits and the bumps and the bruises. And I don't care what household you've been brought up in. If they're making the best of the limited time they've got on this planet, and that's the way to do it. That's, if it is to be, it's up to me. Get out there and have a go.
So here's the shout out, Ben. If anyone feels that they are in a minority or a marginalised group, that they want to represent their community, our platform is an opportunity for them to help do that. So if you want to reach out to us and you feel that you can help your community in terms of our mission, which is to help people in terms of creating a better future through better money management, we'd certainly love to hear from you, because we've got feedback like this is one that I can read out, Ben. Hi, TPC team. I'm one of your Indigenous listeners, and I just want to thank you for using your platform to promote stories like this. It's really significant and will create a better Australia for all. Episodes like this give non-Indigenous people more insight into what Indigenous people are up to, and also shows our mob what's possible through financial literacy, hard work and patience. Keep up the great work. So that is the feedback that's fueling, Ben, and we're certainly keen to use our platform to do whatever we can, the small part that we can play to help.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, Bryce. We are in the best country on the planet. We've said this multiple times. So by sharing these stories of the people who are disadvantaged and the fact that they're achieving amazing things, even though the headwinds they have are so challenging, you need to look in the mirror to yourself and say, well, what's my excuse? Why aren't I, if I've been brought up in a middle-class family or whatever I've done, you do the work, you get the reward. And so if you are sort of thinking, if they can do it, why aren't I? That's a great first step. But then it's about knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. So, you know, our job is to try and encourage that action. And we're trying to put all the tools and all the frameworks and the processes in place that gives you an improved chance of that. So take advantage of them. They're free. We want to see you get to where you want to get to. And if we can play a small role in that, then, you know, we are, you know, are purpose-driven in everything we do. So, you know, that with that purpose really clear in our minds about, you know, giving everyone the chance to improve their financial futures to financial well-being, you know, bring it on and have a go.
Nancy Guevara, you're an angel. Take a bow. I know you were nervous last week when we were chatting afterwards, but you did an incredible job and showed incredible leadership. So well done. So my Mindset Minute theme today, Ben, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I talked about it last week. I'm really enjoying revisiting it, and I think there's so much gold in it that I want to keep sharing it until we get bored of it, right? I don't think that's possible, but it was a book written in 1937 that has so much wisdom. Chapter 2, Ben, is the big secret of dealing with people, and I think this is the gold chapter right here, because it talks about this this need for all of us to have a sense of feeling important, right? So I'm gonna run through a bit of some quotes, but in reading it, there was we as humans have this, not this desire, not this hope, not this this want, but this craving to feel important, right? In some way. And in our daily actions, that is reflected. Tony Robbins, in his 6 core needs, talks about it in terms of significance. But in terms of some of the examples that that Dale went through for this particular chapter was just enormous at the lengths that people will take. It could mean that I cut you off in the traffic, Ben, so I can feel important in the moment, because negative attention is still attention. But what I thought was so good, that if we don't, like, the thing that struck me the most in the chapter was we crave it, Ben. We don't want it or desire it, we crave it. So here's an opportunity for us to actually to plant seeds into other people's lives in a way that gives them what they desperately want. Because if I go for some quotes from the chapter, Ben, there is only one way under high heaven that you can get anybody to do anything. Yes, just one way, and that is by making the other person want to do it, Ben. So the only way I can get you to do anything is giving you what you want. So the question was, what do you want then? Dr. John Dewey said the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important, the desire that you matter, Ben. So in our interpersonal relationships, we should never forget that all our associates are human beings and hunger for appreciation. Here's the bit, Ben. This will be the quote. It is the legal tender that all souls enjoy, Ben. So the conclusion is this: be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise, and people will cherish your words and treasure them and repeat them over a lifetime. Repeat them years, Ben, after you have forgotten them. So the principle number 2 for my Mindset Minute for this week is give honest and sincere appreciation. So I'm going to circle back to this in my life hack later in the episode, Ben, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I had a few people reach out to me, socials, email through to Emma and Iverson. What was the name of that book? It was called How to Win Friends, Ben, and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It has sold millions and millions and millions of copies. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, I thoroughly recommend you do. All right, Ben, we've got a very big show today, a double header. We've, of course, got Nerida Conisbee, who is the Chief Economist of REA. She's a returning guest, a very good friend of the Property Couch. I'm certainly looking forward to having a chat with her. But first, we're going to cut to the interview that we had with Leah, Calnan, Ben. She is also a heavyweight in the property industry. She's also a returning guest and a very good friend of the Property Couch. And given that we are in a state of disaster in Victoria, and given that a lot of people have got a lot of questions around property, Ben, it's important that we address this topic today.
It is, Bryce, and it covers off on my What's Making Property news. So I couldn't be better. I didn't have to do any prep other than to get the head of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria on to give us the latest and greatest, because it is so timely with stage 4 lockdowns in the Greater Melbourne metropolitan area, and stage 3 in most of Victoria, or all of Victoria, I should say. That we need to know what we can do and what we can't do when it comes to property, and we're going to go right to the source and get the latest on that as well.
So let's cut to that interview that you and I had earlier with Leah Calnan. Welcome back to the Property Couch, Leah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure. Hey, Leah, can you correct me if I'm wrong? You started in the role in October last year.
Yes, I did.
Does it feel like 10 months or 10 years?
It feels like 10 years.
Yeah, you've had a bit on, haven't you? So clearly the last few days has been super busy for you. How's the comparison of the last 3 days of 2.0 versus the first 3 days after 1.0?
Oh, good question. It's probably the same in one level, because as government does, that we've learned, is that they make announcements and then some 48 hours, 72 hours, they then give you the details. So that's really frustrating. But I think from the member point of view, they've been really good, because they understand this time around. They understand that this was the process and this is what we experienced last time, and now we just wait. And they've been, I don't think anyone's good at waiting, but they've been really good at just going, okay, tell us what we do and then we'll do it.
Well, the Premier made some announcements on Monday and then clearly had a deadline that sort of happened overnight. What has been the process for you and your colleagues at the Real Estate Institute of Victoria around getting clarity around some of the description? Because I watched his address, as did many people. And, apart from sort of saying, hey, look, anyone who's got an existing contract, it would seem fair and reasonable that we allow them to continue. The rest of the detail has been really vague. So how's the last couple of days gone, and what do we know now?
So yeah, absolutely, Bryce. It's been really difficult and challenging, because we all knew we had to, I suppose the first thing is in Victoria, we're in 2 stages. Regional's in stage 3 and Metro's in stage 2. And that means the Mitchell Shire has moved out of stage 4, out of stage 4 and into stage 3. So it's actually quite confusing, because there's the 2 different stages happening. And we didn't get the directions until after 11 o'clock last night, which again makes it really challenging for people to wake up and go, okay, what do we do?
That's why they call it the 11th hour.
It's just bizarre. Now I know why I could never work in government, because I'm organised. So effectively last night, all of us were shutting down our businesses. Team members were coming into the office, people were clearing desks, taking their chairs and taking their computers and, preparing, because we just said to them, you've got to prepare for the next 6 weeks, because as the information we have as of yesterday, you cannot return to the office. The work permit that was circulated wasn't applicable to us, because we weren't included as a essential service or an excluded party. So you've effectively had to take everything relating to the next 6 weeks. And that's been the biggest challenge, because we just didn't know.
So what does that logistically look like? So, a real estate agent, let's do a case study. They're listening to this, that they can no longer do their job, or can they continue to do their job for existing deals that are in motion, including handing over the keys, and what can and can't be done from someone transacting real estate in stage 4?
Yeah, so today we now know that you can still, and the wording is, we can complete services relating to property settlement and or end of lease processes, including removalists. So we now know that permits will need to be given to those team members that are going to facilitate a key handover for a settlement, and also for property managers with regards to booking the time for the tenant to return the keys and complete the final inspection. There are still some fundamental elements to that we still haven't got some clarity on. So things like, when a tenancy ends, normally people get the carpets steam cleaned. So if cleaning seems to fit in some parts of the directions that we got last night, but does it actually mean that a tenant can employ a steam cleaner to come in and do their carpets? Because if they can't, one or two things will happen. They'll either have their delay of their bonds being refunded, which is not the agent's fault, because they can't complete all of the tasks, or we're going to have to estimate what the approximate cost is going to be. So one of the things we did yesterday was, okay, let's find out what the cost is for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house, approximate cost for tenants, and then we can estimate. Tenants can then pay some money into a trust account. We get it done at the end of the 6 weeks and then undertake the work. So there's still so many practical elements that, all these unintended consequences that government unfortunately just doesn't think about. And I might add, no consultation.
Yeah, look, it has been difficult. I mean, we can give them some saving grace in the fact that it's never happened before, and so this is uncharted territory for everyone. But you'd like to think that with the 3 or so weeks that we were in stage 3 and the high probability we're going to stage 4, that this wouldn't have been work that they started on Friday. That this should have been work that they were contemplating and planning for over almost the last month, if not longer. So that's the disappointing thing. And as you say, the consultation piece that comes in with that. So that's obviously challenging for people who are partway through a transaction, Leah. I'm also fascinated. I can go and see the 12,000 properties for sale currently available in Melbourne and Victoria on the portals, realestate.com.au and so forth, REIV's portal or domain, whatever it is. And I might be interested in buying one of those properties. How do I go about doing that?
Yeah, and that's the other the part that's the challenging. So when we think about everything that's happened with COVID and everything relating to the industry, we are not aware of any cases that came through any component of real estate. So the agency and the public have absolutely complied and done everything right. The state of Victoria contributes just under 50% of the income to the state. So we're a big player in this scheme of things, but it means that you cannot inspect properties under stage 4 restrictions in either rentals or sales. You can only view them virtually. We know online auctions will continue, but if you go into regional Victoria where they're on stage 3, they can physically still view a property on a one-on-one basis.
Now, if you're the selling agent and you're based in stage 4, but your offices are in stage 3, are you allowed to conduct your business to open those inspections?
Very good question. I do not know yet. Because those were the questions coming through. Can somebody in stage 4 go to stage 3 to access and view properties and vice versa? Yeah. And that's what I mean around the practical elements. If there'd been some consultation a week prior rather than at 3:30 yesterday for 40 minutes to understand what our concerns were, it might have been a little bit easier for everyone to adjust.
Yeah. Bring the right people to the table really quickly, early, and then you'll get all of the probability answers that you're looking for, the hypotheticals, that they can then answer. So I think from that point of view, it does highlight that, again, it's been probably a lack of administrative leadership. There's been a void there, unfortunately, for that. So that's really challenging. So let's say then I go on, say I put a holding deposit down on a property that I've only seen online. Can I get a building and pest inspection done on that property?
Again, tricky. There is an allowance for pest in some sections of the directions, but there's no direct reference to building. Yesterday we saw some documents that said that valuations could still take place. Okay. So we assume that will still be able to happen. But again, when you look at the original information that was sent out, it was saying that you were prohibited from going on site, and on site was deemed to be your normal workplace. Yeah. So on site for us as agents is not only our office, but it's a property. So how can you prohibit working on site when that's where the information, and that's how we need to do the role?
Yeah. Sorry, Ben, your role there outside of being the president is you've got a very successful property management business. So this is a query that you may or may not have your own experience with your own clients asking the same question, but someone settles on a property and it's an investment property and they've got a tenant that you've just described that you could maybe help them move out and keep steam cleaning money in trust. But the landlord actually wants to get a new tenant in during stage 4. Do you think that, do you have enough information to answer that? And B, if not, how long do you think it would take for you to get some clarity around that based on your discussions to date?
Well, again, another brilliant question, because that's one of the other issues. You've got all these properties that are vacant at the moment, where owners can't lease them. So what agents were doing in the last 48 hours, they had a big push out. There were all these virtual inspections taking place, and they'll manage those inquiries over the next 6 weeks and then send off the information through via a virtual tour. But that being said, if you think about, if I look at my career, I've probably had maybe 100 tenants who have accepted a lease sight unseen or, based on a virtual tour. And that's 25 years of real estate. We're going to see a dramatic reduction in those transactions. The reality is I don't know if we will see there being any opportunity for us to do or to show prospective tenants through properties, because there is that financial hardship on owners that is it's just brewing, and it's going to explode.
So Leah, just on that point, would you be happy if the government was to say that your place of work, if no one else was in that place, and you could take, one of those video cameras in there, they're 3D cameras that you can do the virtual tours with. So then the property manager can go in there, basically do the virtual tour of the property. That's going to give an owner an improved chance, because at least the potential tenant can do a virtual walkthrough and see, get some sense of scale and size and all of those things. I mean, yes, we understand unprecedented times. It's very difficult. We have a health crisis here. We understand that. But it's the same sort of thing. I think common sense should prevail in regards to, if I'm not going to buy a $500,000 asset or $1 million asset without a building inspection. Sure, a pest inspection I'm also going to do. So I'm going to do my building and pest. So you'd like to think that a building inspection can then take place. That ticks that box. So if they can do that and walk through the property with no one else in the property and practice, obviously the health hygienes that we're talking about, you'd like to think that an agent should be able to access the property to take those images, to get the floor plans and all that done, and do that safely. Yeah.
And they should be able to do it. Me thinking now, and we still have to work through the practical element, but it would be a matter of arranging a time for a tenant to vacate the property. So if we use that example, tenants vacating, we want to have a contactless process. So it might be that the tenant leaves the keys on the front doorstep. They know we're sitting in the car. They then go and sit in their car. We then go and collect the keys and we go through and do the final inspection.
Yep.
At that time, you would hope that the property manager, whilst in the property, is able to facilitate that walkthrough and make sure that we are able to then get everything ready to be uploaded to that virtual tour, because there's no reason why we couldn't do it. But the other part of is that if we can still have the likes of Bunnings open and the likes of, I saw an ad yesterday for the Good Guys. So you can have those as transactions, but you can't have real estate, which surely is an essential service. Surely providing shelter is an essential service.
Yeah, even drawing a line in the sand of it, established shelter versus yet to be established shelter. Being able to transact in that, and that's the big thing. So what would be? You talked about 45 minutes of consultation yesterday, Leah. Let's just live in a vacuum, and let's say that the government gave you plenty of time to consult. What would be your recommendations with an eye on the health problem and with the eye on the fact that shelter is an essential need? Where would your line in the middle be?
I think agents have been able to demonstrate that they can manage not only one-on-one appointments, but there's been a lot of pre-qualifying. We've seen agents, if we look at the sales aspect first, they've been able to have conversations on the phone, get some real understanding of what that prospective buyers looking for. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to put a consumer at a health risk. They don't want to put themselves at a health risk. So they're not opening up the property, just letting the neighbours through and anyone else that walks past. So we can do that on both levels, from sales and property management. And providing that, even if there was a curfew around times that we were doing these inspections, there are other ways of managing this so that we can still have transactions, so that clients aren't financially disadvantaged, which is exactly what's going to happen, so that people can move into rental accommodations and people can still actively sell a property. There were just better ways of doing things.
I think you're right, Leah. I mean, I can use an example right now off the top of my head. Someone's done a long settlement, so they've done the 90-day or 127, because they've practiced all that everyone's told. Sell your property before you buy a property. Don't do it the other way around, because you don't want to be a forced seller. So they've gone and done the right thing. They've sold their property to potentially upgrade or downgrade, and they've given themselves a 90-day or 120-day settlement, and they're now into their last 40 or 50 days, and now they potentially can't buy a property. And so coming back to Bryce's point about, shelter being essential, they're in this very difficult position where, they were waiting for the spring selling season or whatever it is, thinking that there'll be more stock on market. And now they're caught in this limbo piece. So I think hopefully
they can't even rent. They
yes.
can't even
no, that's right.
That's right.
for something for a 6-month period.
Yeah.
Well, I think hopefully common sense will prevail, and we'll see some more clarification over the next week. Yeah, so I can because I just can't see them not clarifying each of these points and us getting more detail into what can be done and what can't be done.
They have said that they understand that as the 6 weeks progresses, as first week down, they understand that there are going to be some fundamental elements that they're going to need to review and potentially make further exemptions across many different industries.
Okay.
But another, really simple example is shutting down an office. So now I'm at home and, I've got 3 kids that are homeschooling at the moment. My office is 45 minutes away. So what happens to the mail? So, and that seems like a really, really simple task, but, in property management, council rates are all due on the 30th of September. I'm pretty sure council's not going to allow us not to pay or forgo any interest.
It's a really great point, Leah. I mean, the only reason why I'm coming in the office, like we've got, 45 staff in Melbourne and they're all working from home, but we provision credit, obviously through our mortgage broking business, right? So there are documents that are arriving, which are mortgage documents that need to find their way. They need to be vetted and find their way to the customer so we can settle on those properties or those refinances or whatever it is. So if I'm not here, I mean, I've got a big sign on the front door because we normally have a sort of a call-in system. I've just got ring this number. I'm in the building and I've already received a couple of critical deliveries this morning. And that's keep going, unfortunately, because, banking is an essential service and that's the banking piece that we're playing. So it is difficult and I can understand why, those types of things around what happens to the post. Are you just going to keep getting those, red slips that you've got to go to the post office and there's going to be massive queues at the post office? That's not going to be social distancing. So it's very difficult, right. Very, very difficult for all concerned.
There is precedent here, Leah. You had a little Easter shock, a little Easter Thursday shock, where you had to go into overdrive and then successfully have some stuff overturned. Do you hold out some optimism that common sense will prevail here over time? Clearly, they've just taken a line in the sand and then will reverse engineer some of the exceptions. Do you feel optimistic based on the discussions you had and using Easter as a precedent that some of these exceptions will start to see common sense?
Look, I'm definitely hopeful. It's quite interesting. I say to Gil King, who's our CEO, often he's the he's the half glass full. He's the half empty, and I'm the half glass full. Yeah. So I've said to him, look, I'll go hard, and you can just go and pick up the pieces after I've gone hard. So that's not how our relationship normally works. Yeah. But look, we'll just continue to work with government. The Treasurer certainly understands that how much of a financial impact that we provide to the state. Back in March, we wrote to the Premier's office and said, please classify us as an essential service. We've got a change in Consumer Affairs Minister, so we're building a new relationship there at the moment. So I am hopeful that when they work through the practical elements, they realise that we can still be good at what we do and also comply with all the health and safety concerns.
What's your message to people who are playing in the grey area? So, for example, a buyer's agent who lives in, because I'm obviously talking from experience in-house, a buyer's agent who lives in stage 4, who's buying in stage 3, in the absence of a direction, would you say that is don't do anything at this point or keep going until you hear otherwise?
No, I would say don't do anything at this stage because the fines are just enormous, and I don't want to be responsible for anyone out there, a team member, a member, anyone of the public to get fined, and we just need to do the right thing and we've continued to do the right thing. It might only be a few days, and we might get some further adjustments. today's a better day than yesterday. We've got a little bit more clarity. So yeah, you just have to do the right thing at the moment.
Just to give the listeners some context of fine, it's just under $20,000 for the person who authorised it, and it's just under $100,000 for the business. So they are obviously material numbers, and fair enough. What the government's basically saying, if you don't have to leave your home, don't leave your home, right? You know, if it's a means by which, but if you can, like in our case, I drive literally from my driveway to a gated garage, and I walk into the building, and then I get back in the car and I drive home, right? So I'm feeling comfortable that I'm not adding to the coronavirus, issue, but I'm also being able to support the thousands of customers that we've got, and also the 60 odd staff across 2 states that we're trying to serve. And so, I've made that judgment call that we, based on the information at hand, that we absolutely provide credit and mortgages as part of that as the appendix. So we're comfortable there, but we've had to send one of the other partners home is a financial planner. We've judged that as to say, no, they want those people at home. So we had one financial planner in the building running that side of the business. Well, he has to work from home, and effectively you become the office lackey to do all of those other pieces around that. So that's also, put some context on it.
Yeah, that's right. And you could still manage an office having one or, probably 2 people in an office from an OH&S point of view, because even in, you think about anything that we do in real estate. I know we'd all love to say that we're 100% paperless, but I don't think any business is 100% paperless. So there is still that element that you still need something scanned in or collected or picked up, like you were saying earlier, Ben, about having deliveries of mortgage documents. Again, if you're just going from home to office, office to home, it can be managed.
Yeah. Now, Leah, you said that you got that announcement at the 11 o'clock last night, or just past 11 o'clock. Is there anything else in that statement that you would like to share with our listeners in terms of our community around what that statement said that we haven't already addressed?
One of the changes they have made is they refer to real estate rather than residential real estate. So that was one of the clarities that we'd been asking for a few weeks now, because, we refer to residential, and then commercial real estate would say, well, what about us? And industrial would say, what about us? But it's all real estate. So I think at least we've got some clarity on that element. So it's all real estate.
Okay.
Terrific. Well, it looks like there's a few days worth of further information to come. Where should people go? I know that on the 4th of August you put up on the REIV site an announcement that you were hoping to have some information by late Wednesday. You probably didn't anticipate how late on Wednesday it was going to be, but
No.
is that the best place for people to continue to stay in tune with the latest that comes out of the Institute?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options. We've got the Facebook page, so managing property through COVID, which Gil and I post on that, it feels like every hour at the moment, anytime we've got some immediate changes. And there's a continual communication that's going out through the members and also on the website. But yeah, we're just trying to push it out everywhere possible. And the networks as well, the franchise groups will all push it out as well to owners, clients, consumers.
Okay. Well, looks like we need to stay in touch with you, Leah, just as things unfold. But we certainly appreciate. I know that your time is very valuable at the moment. Everyone wants to hear from you, so we appreciate you taking the time out today to chat to us on the Property Couch.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Leah.
All right, Ben. So clearly, getting information at the 11th hour last night, when everything changed at 11:59. Was not an ideal process. So you could see from Leah's discussion there that she's going to have a very, very busy 48 to 72 hours. But it was good to get a few insights there from her perspective, because she's well and truly at the coalface. But she's also agreed to circle back with us so that we can fill in some of the gaps. Yeah,
clearly there's more to come, Bryce. I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions. So we'll get those questions answered over the course of the next probably 3 to 4 days. And we look forward to updating our community in next week.
So that's from the state perspective of Victoria, Ben. But we're also wanting to give an update from the national perspective. So again, as we said at the intro, we reached out to our very good friend Nerida Conisbee she agreed to join us on the Property Couch. Let's cut to the interview that we had with her earlier today also. Hello, Nerida. Welcome back to the Property Couch.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to be back.
Yeah, we always
We've missed you. We've missed you.
Yes. So clearly, I mean, your phone must be running hot. Everyone wants to understand property, how that impacts on the Great Australian Barbecue topic all around the country. And as we head into stage 4 in Melbourne, there's lots to talk about. But I wanted to kick off today by asking, how are you actually approaching your commentary requests around the country, given that you can't be everything to everyone in your blogs and your videos, and yet sort of, if you go too high at 30,000 feet, it's not taking into account the granular. If you go too low, you're avoiding too many people. What's your approach to that?
Well, I am trying to keep it very short term at the moment in my outlook. I think one of the problems at the moment is we don't know what's going to happen across a range of things, and that was particularly the case early on in COVID. That we went into lockdown. It took a little while for the government to come back with what they were proposing with regards to stimulus. And then from there, I'm kind of just watching, I guess, the mechanics of the market. So I'm focusing on the mechanics rather than trying to make too many outrageous predictions. One of the things that's really helping is the fact we can see on realestate.com.au with what's happening with things like search and inquiry and listings, and we are getting that real time. So it does give us a little bit of, I guess, an edge in terms of being able to understand what's happening. In terms of how I'm approaching it with the audience, I guess always trying to speak as clearly as possible, not trying to use too many complicated terms, and then also not leaping too far into the future, because again, coming back to the fact we don't know. I know there's been some doom and gloom scenarios out there. I think at the moment they're not particularly helpful. I don't think saying that prices will fall 30% is necessarily a very accurate prediction, and also I don't think it's very helpful. So trying to not come out with long-term calls, but certainly talk about parts of the property market that might be a little bit more exposed to problems, and those that do seem to be coming through this are looking a lot better.
What are your observations as you look through the rear vision mirror of, from now back to kicking off back in March? What were some of the things that you were perhaps encouraged by that you've seen during this versus maybe, the anxiety that builds as we go into, for a lot of people that never even heard of a pandemic before, and then all of a sudden we're faced with it like never before. So what were some of the observations and those predictions of 20-30% drops that are continually coming that don't come to fruition? Should they be dead and buried forever, or is there still a risk that that certain segments of the market could really take a dive to that level?
So I guess coming to the first point, how things have looked through the pandemic. I mean, the first 2 weeks of lockdown in March were diabolical. We could see on realestate.com.au there was this plummeting of activity. There was so much uncertainty. But pretty much since the third stimulus package was announced at the start of April, we started to see a recovery, and we saw this really strong bounce back in activity. So that gave me a bit of confidence. We could still see that people were interested in property. They weren't necessarily transacting. We could still see listings were coming down. But that gave me some confidence that hope wasn't lost. That there was a future, and that people were still interacting, and relatively positive from what we could see on site. I guess the pandemic is leading to quite a different economic situation than what we've seen in previous recessions. We are in a productivity crisis. We can't work properly. We're not in a financial crisis as yet. So if you have a look at what we saw last decade, the global financial crisis, or even the decade before now, but that was very much driven by problems in the finance market. If we go even further back to the 1990s recession, again, it was very much finance driven. So this time we've gone into a recession with a very stable banking system. We've got a government that has money to spend. We've even got changes in the way people are viewing government spending. I mean, there's a lot of talk about modern monetary theory at the moment, and that's really changing the dialogue around how governments should be spending and the way governments should be reacting. In terms of the other thing that really has made a difference to the market is that job loss for now has really been focused on young people, and that was one of our first observations, was that the rental market was hit very quickly, and we not only had people, we didn't have foreign students returning, we had a lot of younger people moving in, parents, we saw an uptick in people sharing, so flatmates.com.au, you started to see a lot of people sharing, and then we started to see a lot of Airbnb listings convert from Airbnb to long-term rental accommodation. So there was kind of this supply issue, listings went up for rent, demand came back, and it was problematic, and it still is problematic in some locations. But if you compare, say, an apartment in Carlton that's very much aimed at a student, that would be very hard to rent at the moment. The person owning that apartment would be finding conditions quite difficult. And compare it to someone who owns a house in Albert Park or owns a house in, Bronte in Sydney. The conditions for established housing, and particularly good quality housing, is vastly different. The reason for that is that the finance sector has really supported people through this at this stage. We've had mortgage payment freezes, a lot of banks are working with people. And again, coming back to the fact that job loss is, typically younger people exposed to hospitality, tourism, education, more likely to be renters. It's not amongst highly paid white collar professionals as yet. So that seems to be the main factor that really is really supporting established housing.
And Nerida, on that point, as you say, long-term forecasting is very difficult. But are you seeing, like, if the pandemic was to continue into, say, the middle of next year, the consequences are that there will be some, white collar, the sort of supply chain will eventually slow down. The consulting work, those types of things will start to slow down. What is your view on that in regards to, do you see a concentration of exposure in particular markets, or do you see that it's going to be widespread? So, to put that into context, we know that first home buyers go usually into the outer suburbs where it's affordable, and they necessarily have strong footings in their employment. And are they more at risk than the more established areas where people are, are highly experienced and trained in their career and potentially can change jobs? Is there any analysis that you've done on that sort of scenario?
Yeah, look, on a state level, we're certainly seeing quite different conditions across states. So go to Canberra at the moment, Canberra hasn't missed a beat in terms of price growth. It hasn't missed a beat in terms of search activity. First home buyer activity is red hot. Even investors are still active in Canberra, which, at the moment, that's the problem area. We don't have many investors in the market. We've got lots of first home buyers, but not investors. So Canberra's looking good. If you go to WA, we can see very different circumstances in WA at the moment. If you go to Perth, for example, again, first home buyer activity is off the charts. If you go to Perth as a first home buyer now, you do get access to some of the most generous government incentives available in Australia. So that's really helped the Perth market. Also, iron ore and gold exports are going well. Record prices for iron ore. There's a lot of positivity in Perth, which we haven't seen for quite some time. Public servants are growing in Canberra. So, there's those two markets are looking quite different. Go to Sydney. Sydney is such a diverse market. If you go to, as I mentioned before, if you're in premium Sydney, we are still seeing pretty good conditions. As you said, we haven't had the white collar hit, and that could happen, anytime. And depending on how long the pandemic goes, and there's a lot of factors that will impact the way white collar employment heads. But head out to Western Sydney, head out to Southwestern Sydney, and particularly apartments. We've seen very low levels of rental demand prior to COVID already, so there was already oversupply issues. And we've also got now COVID, so the rental market's been hit even more. And then when we have a look at listings on a suburb basis, we can see that that's the area that we're seeing not distress, not the most extreme levels of distress, but we are starting to see a bit of a pickup in listing volumes, as it's likely that a lot of investors are struggling a bit with the fact that, they maybe can't get a tenant, maybe can't get the rental return that they're wanting, and they're also not achieving any capital growth with no promise of capital growth. So, there's not distress, but there's certainly a lot of concern about the long-term viability of owning an apartment in these certain markets.
What do you? Sorry, Ben.
There you go.
What do you take about? Do you have a view on, the September cliff is now no longer an issue? Some calling it the September slope. But do you have a view on what that phasing out of that underpinning of, for lack of a better word, a zombie business over time will mean for our economy, unemployment over time, and the flow-on effect to certain segments of the property market that may be most vulnerable to that?
Again, it's hard to know. I mean, I think if we go back to June and we look at how conditions were across Australia, it was looking quite good. We had this sharp pickup in retail trade. We were seeing, in terms of listing volumes, we were pretty happy in terms of the way that that part of our business was going. But I think what we saw in July was how quickly it could shift. That suddenly Melbourne had this surge of infections and is now in lockdown and is leading to this dramatically different situation. I think that it's going to be a long haul to get us out. It's we've seen in the omnibus surveys that we run on site week to week that we have seen a sharp pickup now in people saying that it's going to be more than 12 months to get back to normal. So there's clearly a recognition that we are in a new normal, and it's going to take us a long time to feel like we were back how we were feeling back in February. So what I think that means for government, it does mean big spending, and we do have big spending governments all around the world now. I mean, if you have a look at the amount of government debt, it's actually equal to 100% of GDP globally. So it's this incredible situation that no one could have predicted in terms of the way government would have to react. So I think that's the future. I mean, we are looking at a future of a much bigger government, a much bigger spending government, bigger debt levels for government. It does make the role, at this stage, looking at things like interest rates less relevant, really, because they can't go any lower. Obviously, the Reserve Bank is doing other things to stimulate the economy, but it is looking, very, very different in the way that the government will have to be spending money. And so I think what will happen, we obviously didn't see the September cliff. Banks didn't withdraw support from the people that they were helping get through this crisis. We didn't see, we've seen the government extend the stimulus. And I think what will need to happen with a lot of the government stimulus is it will need to start to get far more targeted. That what we have a situation in, WA at the moment, WA is looking okay, but go to Melbourne and Melbourne's in 6-week lockdown, and you've got businesses that have the potential to shut down if they're not given some government support. So, I think that the kind of, a kind of a nimble approach to government spending will become more and more important over the next, 12 months or potentially longer.
You talked about the government spending and you hinted at it before. Can you give us a 101 lesson on modern monetary theory and how that relates to the amount of debt that they're accumulating?
Yeah, so modern money, I'm no expert. There are experts on it, but it is around the government effectively having unlimited spending power. So it does mean that, if they need to spend, they effectively print money and they keep spending. It's been seen as, I guess, quite a radical concept for a long time, and there's always been concerns that or not concerns, historically, we have seen that when we've got governments that do produce money in this way, it does lead to high inflation. So, that's always been the concern with a government that does this. And, but, we're not in normal circumstances. And I think, this is why it's starting to get far more focused, is that, well, maybe this is the way that we get out of it. And, you know, if you have a look at governments through, you know, certainly the last century, I mean, every new crisis brings an adjustment in the way that they look at the economy and the way that they manage the economy. And for now, it really does look like it's going to be government getting us out of this, because, you know, how else can we get out of it when it has been a productivity-induced recession? It's not a financial crisis-induced recession. So it's quite a different, I guess, downturn than we've ever seen before, when certainly any of us have seen before.
So Nerida, when it comes to obviously situations like this, and you've got to give sound bites to the mainstream media, I thought today, and you know, what we wanted to focus in with you was around the markets within markets. We've always talked about sub-markets and you know, areas that have desirability and livability, and obviously, you know, the future of CBDs, now that, you know, we're already starting to see some commentary come out that everyone's going to move out to the regions because they all don't have to go into the office and collaborate. But what we wanted to do was just take a little focus in some of the different market segments and sort of get your views on what you think are going to happen in those market segments. The one I wanted to start with is the CBD, which obviously has a high concentration of the apartments, the medium and high density stuff. What are you seeing there? And if you could link that into sort of off the plan as a general view of those markets.
Yeah, so the CBD is probably the toughest market at the moment, and not just from a residential perspective, but also a commercial property perspective. If you have a look at what we're seeing in Melbourne CBD rental listings, you know, we are seeing a big pickup in the number of rental listings, and primarily related to foreign students. They've left a big hole in a lot of apartment buildings. So the CBD, I mean, it's interesting at the moment. I mean, the Property Council data came out today around vacancy rate. They did see a doubling of vacancy rate, but it you know, I think it went from Melbourne went from 3.5 to around 7%. So so right now it doesn't, you know, I guess from a data perspective, it's not looking too bad. But the reality, we know that nobody's in the CBD at the moment, and we also know. Or no, we don't know, but it's highly likely that many of us, you know, will not return to the CBD to the same 9 to 5 office environment that we did previously, and the way that we're working has changed. And given that that's happened across every industry, it does start to put a big question around what's going to happen to all these office buildings. You know, what if you don't need so much, you know, what does that look like in terms of vacancy rate and rental levels and the like. It then has a flow-on effect to what's happening in retail in the Melbourne CBD. So I think Melbourne CBD vacancy rates are at around 10% at the moment, but again, you know, that doesn't really, it's not showing up what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks. So, you know, we know that there are a lot of businesses that are going to be very badly affected by this 6-week lockdown. And then longer term, you know, can they be supported if we don't have so many people working in the city? You know, will that support them? I think off the plan, there's lots of issues there. I mean, the big one being is that we haven't seen good levels of investor inquiry for a long time. So pretty much since before the Royal Commission came out, we started to see this big drawback in investor activity, and we started to see them come back end of last year, but then COVID has really shut it down. So across every capital city now, we can see that investor activity is down, except as I mentioned before, Canberra and WA still are looking pretty positive. So that's very problematic for off the plan. We know that the majority of people that buy off the plan apartments are investors. A lot of off the plan developers were starting to pivot more to first home buyers and owner occupiers. So, you know, that trend was really starting to happen. But it's problematic. The other thing that's problematic is Chinese buyers aren't active either. So, you know, we don't have that huge volume of offshore buyers that are coming through. We do have some offshore buyers, you know, Hong Kong buyers buyers, for example, are still very active and off the plan. But Chinese were the volume, and right now they're not buying to the same extent. So I think what it means for off the plan, they're just going to have to continue to pivot to looking at owner occupiers as buyers. I think, trying to tap into first home buyers would be another one. But it's the other thing I would be doing if I was an off the plan developer is I would be trying to lobby for things like home builder to apply to investors. I think right now none of the government incentives that have been announced since the COVID lockdown have applied to investors. But if you have a look at first home buyers, they've just been layer upon layer upon layer of added stimulus to try and get them into the market.
About 100 or 150 episodes ago, we said CBD could stand for could be dangerous. It might be shifting to certainly be dangerous, right? Given the commentary that you've just given. Do you think that what you talked about before? Do you foresee, a bit of crystal balling, right? So do you foresee that the change away from working in offices in the CBD environment and people moving out to regional? I'll get your comments on that shortly. Do you foresee that as being a permanent or a fad thing? Because I think of the example around the floods in Brisbane. People wouldn't buy in Indooroopilly, they wouldn't buy in Sherwood, they wouldn't buy in these suburbs that were premium river-based suburbs that were affected by the flood. I remember having a mate who bought a house that went under up to the roof as a way of getting in the market renovations, and now they don't even think about that, given that was, if my history serves me right, it was about 9 years ago for that flood, right? So therefore, it was really prevalent at the time. We weren't thinking anything other than do not buy in those areas, and now that's sort of a distant memory. Do you see this as being a permanent or a temporary sort of shift away from CBD if we're talking 2023, 2024 having the same conversation?
Look, it's not the end of the CBD. I think the CBDs, it's not the death of them.
Well, it's more about the work from CBD versus being more home based.
Yeah, I think, I suppose, who can tell? I mean, like you said, with the flooding, everyone thought that, no one would ever go back to these flood affected areas, but in the end, people love living on water, and they were nice homes, and people kind of, moved on and started buying that. I think the CBD, what it needs is foreign students to come back. So we do need the education sector to really start pumping again. We also need to, we need to get back to work. So I think that's another thing that we don't quite know how many people will continue to work from home forever. I mean, personally, I quite like going into the office. So I like, I don't love going I don't love Zoom meetings. I'd much rather be doing face-to-face. So, for me personally, I would prefer to be in the office. And then I think too, culturally, there's a lot of reasons why it is better for people to be in an office environment. That, how do you maintain culture when, when you're trying to conduct it via Zoom meetings, when people don't have that face-to-face interaction? I think that's problematic from a culture perspective. And then just even enjoyment of work that, I think for now, or early on, certainly working from home, was a novelty, but over time you kind of get sick of being in the same environment, and, it's quite nice to be in an office. So, it's not the end of the CBD. I think what it will do is lead to a bit of a redistribution around cities. And it's something that's been, in Sydney, they've been trying to do for a long time. They've been trying to get this centralisation of activity out of the CBD and get it to Parramatta and get it out to, eventually Western Sydney Airport, the area around there. So, there's always been this plan for 3 CBDs. So I think this will probably accelerate that. And, we may start to see that happening more. Also regional areas, I think that's another potential beneficiary. There's some regional areas that people are particularly interested in at the moment, and the way that we're working has been a factor that's really facilitated that.
I live in regional Victoria. I'm in the Surf Coast Shire, and there's been in chatting with the local agents around here, they've said they've seen an enormous increase in demand for housing here, given that a lot of people are planning to change the way that they work post this environment. So I think fringe commutable regional areas will definitely increase. And I've said it before, but you remember when you're in Noosa and you think, oh, just feels a little bit too far away from Brisbane. Whereas, if you're down in Caboolture, it's a bit different. And again, if you're on the southern tip of the Gold Coast, for example, to get to Brisbane. So, all of a sudden Mandurah and Port Noarlunga and the northern end of the Sunshine Coast and all these things where you just had this sort of this niche group of people that were commuting, I think that will start to really grow. And I think it'll be permanent in terms of that increase in the demand. But I also just think that people will always still just gravitate back to, shorter commute times, back where the buzz is, all those sorts of things over time. So I think it will increase places like where I live, but I don't see it being this mass rush to get out at all costs, because I think people, amongst other things, just can't stand the idea of being stuck in a long commute to their workplace if they don't have the luxury of being able to mix it up a bit. So, so Ben talked about Ben was talking about obviously CBD. If we go to the other part of that, what about the fringe urban, including established fringe suburbs and new housing estates? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing well at the moment. We had, I suppose, getting back to that first home buyer activity, it's a pretty good time for first home buyers. They don't like fast moving markets. The market's certainly not moving fast. They can still get finance. They're generally seen as relatively safe borrowers. They've got the 5% deposit scheme. There's New South Wales have just increased, the cut-off stamp duty exemptions. There's just so much available to them, and we can certainly see it on inquiry levels. They love house and land. We know, or we can see when we have a look at inquiry again, what we're seeing in places like northwestern Sydney is this enormous level of inquiry taking place from first home buyers. They specify what sort of buyer they are, so that's been very positive for that part of town. And then of course there was Home Builder, and Home Builder was, just led to this massive surge, this rush onto our builder side. It was, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was, it was kind of always kind of tracking along, and then Home Builder was announced and it just like shot right up. So house and land's doing quite well. Particularly given we're in a pandemic and a recession, we've got rising unemployment, it's doing pretty well. Fringe residential, again, if it's an established suburb, it's, big family homes on big blocks, we're seeing very little weakness in that market. And again, looking at northwest Sydney, places like Seven Hills and Borkham Hills, still seeing lots of activity. If you go to Melbourne, northeast, places like Watsonia and Bright Hill, they're still seeing pretty high views per listing. Mornington Peninsula is still doing okay. So, I think there's kind of, when you have a look at the three parts of the market, established housing doing fine, house and land doing fine, apartments off the plan, real problems, and then also apartments. Well, apartments in general is really the weak spot in outlook at the moment.
Yeah, I saw, Nerida, that the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, talking about in his fiscal update that 80% increase in sales for home buyers. Now, I don't know where he got the 80% and what he was comparing, but that was the June number that he quoted in his update. And I thought, so I think that'll start to flow through in terms of the approvals. The building approval data is still very sluggish, but obviously you get the signed contract and then you've got to get the plans and permits done. So I think that bodes well for obviously construction activity in that sort of September and December quarters. We'll start to see that flow through as well. So I think that bodes well. You mentioned earlier that you thought that that the established dwelling market was going really, was quite good. And I'm probably curious about the middle and inner urban established areas. They're probably the last ones that we wanted to lean into. What's been the read in those particular markets, and have you got any sort of anecdotal evidence around what's been happening?
Okay, so I guess leading up until COVID, it was very strong. You know, the inner rings, middle rings were seeing some, for houses, we're seeing some very, very strong price growth. It hasn't fallen back as much as you would expect given the economic circumstances. If you have I write a column, which I've got to write it today I wrote a column for Mansions magazine for the Australian, and you know that premium market is quite good. You know, like it's again considering. I mean, I suppose I say quite good, but I'm not talking. You know.
Yeah, double-digit growth already and crazy. Like yep. That's
but
solid.
Given what we're going through, I mean, it's quite astounding that there's still a lot of good prices being paid and higher prices being paid is quite surprising. So definitely premium. I mean, if you have a look at the most expensive suburbs in any capital city at the moment, they are continuing to see quite decent conditions. And I think it's a bit driven by flight to quality. You know, when people are a little bit nervous, they go to things that they trust and they've seen in the past do quite well. That stable banking system, still very little fallout in white-collar employment. Also, what we are hearing anecdotally is there's a lot of expats that are quite keen to come back to Australia. So, that brings an additional injection of cash. So for now, that looks pretty good. I think for medium, middle ring suburbs, not as positive as what we're seeing in premium areas, but still not bad. I think if you're in a solid suburb that has good housing and good schools and retail and public transport, people are still looking for those fundamentals, and they're not showing up in higher numbers of listings. They're not showing up in higher numbers of rentals available. On site, what we're seeing is still relatively positive for that sort of housing.
So Nerida, I guess I think there's reasonably strong fundamentals based on what you've been chatting about for people to still be optimistic about property in this country, for the fact that we don't really have enough housing stock for the people that are expected to be here for this decade. But one of the challenges is that there is a temporary pause on people landing here. In terms of one of our superpowers has always been the fact that we're going to have this great population growth over the next decade. But that's currently in a pause mode. What impact do you see on the pause period? Because I think we're going to be in more demand than ever on the other side of this, and I think that the growth projections for the rest of this decade will remain very strong. But what do you foresee as the short-term impact of the pause?
Well, we're seeing it already with foreign students. So, that's clearly showing up. If you've got a rental property that's rented to students in, close to a university, I'm sure you're not feeling that confident with that investment at the moment. So, that's already an immediate fallout. Already flowing through to off the plan, again, if investors aren't feeling confident, then, that's going to impact the pipeline. I think, it will depend on how quickly we can get immigration happening again. And, this isn't an issue that's of concern in Australia. It's a global issue. Every country is grappling with the fact that, growth is driven a lot by more people. So if you don't have more people, then, how does the future look? Again, you can, I suppose this is, one of the things around the outlook. You can be very negative about it and say, right, they won't come back for another 3 years, therefore, the economy is going to be in a terrible situation and housing demand is going to be very bad, and, this is going to lead to a depression, or, so you can, I could come out with a string of comments that paints a completely different picture to what we actually know right now, which is we don't know. We don't know how soon migrants can come back in. We know that there was a pilot program that was meant to start in September to try and start bringing some foreign students back in. For now, that's been derailed with the situation in Melbourne. But, I think once borders open again and again, we don't know how that will look. Australia will be seen as an awesome place to live, because it is an awesome place to live. Also, the fact that if we can get through this, Melbourne can get through this in the next 6 weeks, and we start to see declining infections, and we start to look like we were back in June quite quickly, our economic outlook will look quite different to the rest of the world. So, we'll still be seen as, I guess, an outlier from an economic growth perspective. Already we know all the problems in Hong Kong, causing high levels of search here. It's likely we will see more, potentially see more migration out of Hong Kong. Even parts of Europe. I mean, how Italy was already on the brink of recession prior to COVID, and they were one of the worst hit areas. So does that mean we will see more migrants coming out of Europe? Potentially even the US, which seems to be getting hit far worse than other parts of the world, potentially a bit more from there. So I don't think Australia will become less attractive to people. I think it will, at that stage, I think it will be up to the government as to who do we want here in Australia? What skills do we need to rebuild Australia? There'll be lots of discussion around that. And then once we have those people coming back in, again, there's our support for housing and support for the wider economy.
I mean, we on that point, Nerida, we go back to the Menzies era, the second time he was the Prime Minister post Second World War, and that's exactly how we built this great nation. We built it on the back of immigration, the $10 POMs, the Italians, the Greeks. They all arrived. They arrived in the early 50s, and we went into significant debt. And we basically, delivered the great Australian dream of everyone having home ownership, and it took many decades to pay that debt off. But ultimately, that's how they stimulated that and saw that prosperous period through the 60s and into the early 70s. The same sort of thing is probably going to take shape here. I want to lean into the conversation around the people who are glass half empty, the economic commentators and the data analysts who are talking about we are pushing the can down the road, and we haven't got the September cliff, but we are potentially going to see some more distressed selling as the economy starts to slow. Now, I only have to look back sort of 18 to 24 months where everyone said that investors were going to struggle with the interest-only period rolling over. There was 200,000 of those that were going to happen, and that materialised into nothing. What's your view, and what are you seeing in the data around distressed sales?
Well, I guess the most extreme distress is a mortgagee sale, and that's when you really have lost control of your ability to pay back the loan. The bank takes on the home and has to sell it. So, virtually nothing. We've got 5 listings on realestate.com.au that are
5 out of how many?
Out of more than 160,000.
5.
So it's actually less than last year. There was more last year. There was 10, I think. So for now, it's clear. I mean, we know the banks are helping people through this. Yes. When you have a look at the number of people that have taken on interest only, that's clearly something that's not interest only. Sorry, mortgage payment freezes.
Yeah, deferrals. Yep.
A lot of people through. The Australian Banking Association has come out and said that their member banks will continue to work with people through this process. And I think that, this is the key difference for housing compared to the previous, downturns that we've had, that we do have a banking system that is pretty solid at the moment. The RBA is pumping them up even more. So, they are well equipped to handle this. There's also a lot of problems for them around reputation. They've just come through a Royal Commission. So,
Yes.
I think they'll be working quite carefully to ensure that they are giving people a decent chance. And then I suppose, that's not to say that there won't be problem areas.
Yep.
And, this is the thing with these forecasts. I mean, at the moment, if you're doom and gloom, you say 30, and if you're just kind of regular negative,
You say 10.
So, there's two numbers that people are coming out with, and you know, and then I'm always like, well, are you talking Sydney, Melbourne? Is that including Canberra? Are you talking houses? Is it apartments? Are you talking Western Sydney versus Eastern suburbs? You know, there's
markets
just
within markets.
It's just complicated. You know, it's not easy to just give one number and say, yeah, that's, you know, that's the forecast. So, you know, I think there will be areas that will struggle. You know, I've spoken about things like apartment in high development areas, highly exposed to foreign students is like literally one of the toughest investments you could have in housing at the moment.
Yep.
But if you own something in, you know, in Byron Bay or Bangalore in, you know, Northern Rivers, you'd be pretty happy right now because there's lots of people wanting to live there and there's not much stock and, you know, there's this real lifestyle shift. So, you know, there's a lot of different dynamics that are occurring not only across the country, but also within cities as well.
Yep.
Nerida, can we dive into some of your blog headlines? One was revenge spending might be the way out of recession. Can you dig a little deeper on that for us?
Yeah, so this is a term that was that Bain & Co. Management consultants came up with something that they saw in China once the lockdown ended. So lockdown ended in China, obviously earlier in the year, and Shanghai Hermes store saw the biggest day they'd ever seen in terms of sales. So, you know, there was this incredible rush to luxury retailing, which, you know, again, surprising in weak economic conditions. You wouldn't expect people to rush to luxury, but, you know, that's what they saw. We saw it a bit here in Australia. If you have a look at what happened in April with retail trade, we saw the biggest plunge ever. And in May, we saw the biggest increase ever. So, you know, there was this, you know, real V shape in terms of the way people were spending. June was looking pretty stable. I think it was like around 3 to 4% growth in retail trade. July is probably going to be bad again. You know, Melbourne, bang, down, and then, you know, potentially back up again. So, you know, I think with retail, one of the things is that people who are employed do have quite a bit of spare cash at the moment because we're not traveling, we're not eating out. There's nothing really to spend your money on, even clothing. You know, if you're at home all day, you know, why you need to get dressed up, it's kind of, there's not much point. So, you know, for now in lockdown, you don't spend much. And when we come out of lockdown, there does seem to be a tendency for people to just, you know, want to go out more and eat out more and, you know, buy stuff and you know, really, you know, enjoy life again. So, you know, I think it is good news for shopping centres. I know, you know, walking around, you know, I live in the northern beaches in Sydney, and walking around Warringah Mall at the start of April, like it literally felt like the end of the world. You know, all the shops were shut. There was, you know, the supermarket was busy, but everyone was very kind of nervous and suspicious, and it was, you know, it was a pretty confronting environment. But, you know, went there on the weekend and it was packed. You know, it was busy, and a lot of the stores are saying, you know, they're not doing too badly again, given the economic circumstances. So, you know, so hopefully, you know, I hope that this will be something that does happen. I think it will. I don't think it will, definitely will help the economy, and you know, we've certainly witnessed it when things start to improve here, that people do go out there and start spending again.
I think you're right, Nerida. It is, this time's different. You know, being one who is in Melbourne in lockdown here, out of the three of us, I just feel we're better prepared. We know what's ahead of us. We know we've just got to do the right thing. We've got to stay home, you know, and we can get on top of it. And I think that probably speaks to the human spirit, right? The human spirit is resilience. You know, we do have moments of panic. That's only natural. But I just don't feel like it's panic this time around. I think it's just, okay, we just got to ride through this period, and, you know, we'll be resilient, and then we'll come out the other side in better shape. So, you know, that's my takeaway in terms of, you know, what you've shared with us today as well, is that there's still some unknowns, but you're very calm, and, you know, the data tells the story. You've got the privilege of looking at your realestate.com.au data, and that's showing you positive signs. So I think from my point of view, the takeaway for me is, remain calm, but also be resilient. So I appreciate you sharing those insights with us.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you come and join us on the Property Couch Nerida. Today was no different. We know that you're busy, so yeah, thanks again for coming and sharing your insights with our community. And yeah, we look forward to getting a little bit more commentary around what's happening in Melbourne over the next 24 to 48 hours. So we'll keep an eye on some of your commentary around that. But as always, thanks for joining us on the Property Couch.
Great, thanks for having me.
All right, Ben. So again, amazing insights from someone who is at the coalface of really studying the impacts of everything as it relates to Australia and the property market.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, her data is really, cutting edge. They can see what's basically happening in real time. We've always said that a lot of property data is lag data, but the data that the realestate.com and Flatmates and all of their application tools, their research platforms give her and her team is very good. That's why we always go to her and the REA Group, because we just get so much great content. Same with CoreLogic, our good friends there. So I just think it's really helpful to have that perspective. And as you heard, she's the chief economist, so she's looking at the data, she's forming views on that. Obviously, it's difficult to form longer term views, but what she's seeing in the data right now is that, that big story about markets within markets and the segments that we went after today, and what's been consistent in our messaging as well is that, there's going to be some challenges for some markets, but some real opportunities in others.
It was premeditated by you and I, Ben, that we wanted to dive into segments rather than states and capital cities, just because we didn't want to add to the noise around generalised commentary. So hopefully that was able to give people a little bit more of a in the weeds look at various segments that make up the property market as well. So I thought that was really insightful. Hopefully our community got lots of benefit out of that.
Yeah, I definitely did. So if I'm doing it, I'm hoping everyone else does. I've got a heap the takeaway. So that's all great.
We get the front row seat, don't we? So that's amazing.
We did.
So just another shout out to thank those incredibly busy and professionals who have come on and given up some of their time to help inform our community. So we appreciate it, Leah. We certainly appreciate it, Nerida. So thanks very much. Hey, my life hack today, Ben, is actually a reflection of my Mindset Minute. So I said that the principle in that the book chapter 2 was to give sincere and honest appreciation. So my life hack for our listeners is to go out into the community, their family, their friends, whether it's a Zoom call if you're in lockdown in stage 4, Ben, or if you're up in Queensland enjoying a suntan, wherever you are in this great country of ours, actually seek out opportunities where you can look someone in the eye and give them what they crave, and a way for them to feel important. Give them honest and sincere appreciation, and watch how they respond, Ben. See if it just lifts them up, and be a positive contributor to people who would be desperate, not only for it in general, but in the environment we fire it in. So I'm gonna do a case study, Ben. I'm going to start this right. So I'm going to start with Stig and with Emma. So this is easy to give appreciation because they are brilliant professionals, Ben, who carry you and me on their backs with this 100%. Production, take it to a place that we could never ever take it to. But I have the privilege of working with these two from the perspective of our business, but also for the Property Couch. Each week I meet with them, and I can tell you, I look forward to that meeting because just to see the progress that we've made is just so amazing. So on behalf of our community, just a shout out to Ivis and to Emma, who do just a terrific job to keep our community informed. A beautiful
message for two beautiful people, Bryce. Well said.
Well said. So now, Ben, you, okay? I'm gonna do a case study for you, all right? So just hang in with me. I'm going to refer to my notes.
Knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. See you next week.
Hang on, I've got to refer to my notes. I need some help. So what was it? Here and honest appreciation. All right. So okay, I should have prepped better for this, but so Ben, all right, here we go. You are really great at choosing football teams, mate. No. Actually, in the chapter in the book, it said very clear, don't go to flattery, because flattery is not appreciation, Ben. So I would be flattering you if I said that you are good at picking football teams, because you're not. You're rubbish at it. But no, all jokes aside, mate, you are a brilliant human being who I get the joy and privilege of working alongside all the time. And what I love about you, mate, is this community benefits from the fact that you, from deep within your soul and your heart, you just want to give and you want to see people succeed. I've seen it happen in my own life on numerous occasions. So the fact that our community gets to hang out with you every week is brilliant. So, mate, you are important. You're making a difference. You are a legend. So there you go, folks. I've just given you a showcase of it doesn't take much to just make a difference in people's lives as long as it comes from the heart. And
well, thank you, mate.
Appreciation.
Very kind of you to say that, and ditto. We are
not
blessed to have you. You're not allowed to return serve?
No.
We are blessed to have you, obviously, steering this important ship and getting all of that insight that you have as one of Australia's best buyers, agents, and readers of the property market. So we greatly appreciate your thoughts coming on to the Property Couch as well, mate. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Very kind. So there you go, folks. If you could showcase that with the people in your world, geez, wouldn't it be a better place if we can all do that? And just a reminder, Ben, I've been slogging it out in the studio with the audio book. It's very close. Stay tuned, Ben. I'll announce it very, very soon. As soon as we can get that out of production, let you know you can get onto that. So this is the point where I normally say to you, Ben, what's making property news? But you're going to just circle back to the beginning, aren't you?
Well, I just start from the beginning. That was my two stories. I mean, we were making news today. We had the head of the REIA on before she was interviewed by REIV, sorry. Whether she was interviewed by all of the based reporters. So that's great. So she's
true. We got it at 9 a.m.
We did. And Nerida, who's in hot demand for her insights into the property market and a level head, right? So no sensational headlines there, just common sense. This is what the data's telling us, and we'll keep reporting on the data. So that's what's making property news this week, Bryce.
Well, mate, I like that.
And I did my economic update, which came out yesterday, I think, on the podcast as well.
That's on the podcast channels.
So that's my what's making news as well. So until next week, Bryce, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
Love your work, Ben. See you next week, folks.
Hey there, folks. Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listened to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now, for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarizes the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D, and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.